Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Talkin Kop. I'm Gav, and with me tonight I have got Kev and I have got Ashley. Just to let people know, Kev is watching the Champions League semi-final between Inter and Barca, and if he makes any sudden movements or any more weird facial movements, more weirder than usual, something is happening at the San Siro. So Kev and probably Ashley will keep you updated. I've turned my telly off because I'm a professional. Okay. Anyway, this is a transfer show. We never thought we were going to be doing a transfer show on the 6th of May, but the news of Trent Alexander-Arnold confirming he will leave Liverpool, along with Liverpool being confirmed champions, I think, has led to early rumours with regards to who Liverpool will bring in to strengthen and stuff like that. So we're going to go through it all. We're going to touch on some names. We're going to chat about them. Like I said, we'll keep you updated on the Champions League semi-final. That's just absolutely mental between Inter and Barca, and then we get our way. Okay. I'm gonna start us off. Actually, I'll come to you. Trent's confirmed he's leaving. We done a show on it last night about the if, whats, and maybes, how everyone feels and stuff. But the next conversation is what happens next. Conor Bradley is at the football club. Very, very highly rated. We've seen how good he can be. We've seen that kind of little injury prone thing in his game where people are saying, look, he's still growing into his body and getting used to the physical side of consistent top level football. But just before we went to names, where are you on this? Because a lot of people think you go with Bradley and you bring in a young player to back him up, or other people think, no, bring in a really experienced kind of player that can be back up to Bradley and easily stand in if Bradley gets that injury or whatever. Where are you on this? Because I've seen so many people going different ways with this, and a lot of them does. Everybody wants Conor Bradley to be, yes, Conor Bradley going to play 35 league games next season, but in the back of their minds they're like, yeah, but can he?
Yeah, I think it was the Tompkins Times. He does a Substack, and I was reading an article about him on Conor Bradley, and he was comparing the injuries that he's had to a lot of other young players of the similar age bracket that have broken into kind of top flight football at the same age. And his analysis basically said that the injuries that Conor Bradley was getting was in line with what was happening all across the league in terms of that age bracket. So yes, he has had things like hamstring injuries, which are very concerning. He's also had kind of growth related injuries, which are concerning. But the way that he described it was that's across all. Kev, why don't you give us the coverage of the goal that just
Inter have
happened?
taken the lead.
Sorry.
98 minutes. 98 minutes gone. Inter have taken the lead. Players are climbing the fences on the end of the terrace where the fans are going absolutely
Fratesi with the goal.
Fratesi.
Okay. I didn't want to miss out on that because I was watching them climb the fences and I'm like, oh, something's happening. But yeah, going back to the injury thing, I think it's being overblown. I think this will be Bradley's breakout year. I think what we need to do is find a way to manage him. And I've said on chats to you guys, I think what we need to do is find a foil for him where maybe we bring in someone that complements him in a way that it brings something different to the team than what Bradley brings. Maybe you bring someone in that's a little bit older, that knows the ropes, that can take the pressure off him. Because I think the biggest problem that Bradley's going to face is the pressure of replacing someone like a Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's never going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold. He will be his own player. He has his own strengths. But I don't want us as fans to just pile on to him all of our hopes and dreams and think that that's going to happen over the course of the next year, because he needs to be able to grow into the role. And I think he has all of the raw talent to be able to do that. But I do think we need someone to take the pressure off because he's not going to be able to play every single game. I think he needs to be managed carefully.
I think he does need to be managed carefully. I think even if you told me Conor Bradley was going to be fit for the whole of next season, I look at like Kwanzaa as an example, where they have a good season, and all right, Bradley's being broken up by injury a little bit, but you can have a really good season. Like I think he has, Bradley, this season when he's played, and he's being trusted. He's been brought on for Trent so many times. He's being put straight into the team when Trent's being injured, and but my worry is going into next season that you heap so much pressure on this lad on his own. And no matter how good Conor Bradley is or is going to be, or how good he shows he is, he's going to have these comparisons with Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's just the nature of the game. And look, Liverpool won't try put pressure on him, but he's surely going to feel it. He's gone through the season with a freedom for me where I'm getting games. It's great. Trent will get back in. If Trent's injured, I'll play. But when you're put down and look, you are the man now. And it's a bit like, it went really well, but following Klopp, following Trent is no easy task. The sort of way. Kev, just getting into some names. The first one that's there is Jeremie Frimpong. Apparently a buyout clause of 35 million euros. His name has popped up numerous times particularly in the last 6 months. Would qualify as homegrown, I believe. And look, he does offer something different to Bradley. He's explosive pace. Really, really fast. He can actually play right wing and has done so for Leverkusen and for Holland. But he's the first name out there. Is he the most obvious for you? Is he the one you'd put the money on?
He ticks an awful lot of boxes. The homegrown one is important. I know people hate when I start talking about the numbers you have to have in a squad, because I do it every summer, and it's still important. You're going to lose Trent and Queven Kelleher this summer at minimum. So that's 2 club-grown, homegrown players going out of your squad. You have to either bring in 2 homegrown players, or if you've got 2 players who are coming to that age from the under-21 setup into your squad, the Conor Bradley, not Conor Bradley, but Tyler Morton type players that you just add to your squad and you just write their names on the bottom of a sheet. But Frimpong for me is, traditionally he's a wing back. He would offer you on the right hand side a balance, almost like a flip side to what you're probably looking to do on the left. If you're going to bring in something like Kirkes on the left, then you could see him picking. The positions that you watch with us, and you see Robertson popping up on the inside left forward position in the final third, and the same with Costas, and you're scratching your head thinking, "What the hell are you doing there?" But that's by design. Slot likes his fullbacks taking up inverted positions on the edge of the box between the winger and the forwards. Now, if you're playing with Kirkes doing that off the left, Bradley could almost play a deeper role on the right-hand side when he starts. On the flip side of that, you could do that on the right-hand side with Frimpong being that inside right attacking fullback if you're playing Andy Robertson on the left, where he almost drops back deeper and creates like almost like a back three. And the other side of it is he can play on the wing. He can play as a right mid. He's a really good footballer. He's quick. You question him defensively, but at the end of the day, he's still 24. He's played the bones of 200 first-team games now. And you remember when we were talking about, over the last few years, the kind of players that the club like to look at. Are they experienced? Are they experienced for the age? You look at Szoboszlai, the amount of games he'd played. Mac Allister, the amount of games he'd played. Frimpong is the same. He's played a lot of football, senior football, winning trophies at a right age, at a big club. And he's done it in meaningful competition. And the fee is right. If it doesn't work out... the fact that he'll come into a squad where he knows a lot of players, he'd be comfortable coming into the squad. I just think he ticks way too many boxes for it. And there's so much noise around him. Kind of like there was around Zubimendi last summer. There was so much noise around him that it's getting very hard to ignore it. And out of all of the ones that we'll talk about, I think he gives you the most flexibility.
Yeah. It's there's a few other names in there, right? And look, I'm not going to pretend I know an awful lot about these players because I just don't. There's Martin Fernandez from Porto, I think he plays for. You've got Kyle Walker-Peters, who's available on a free, just to let people know. You've got a guy at Feyenoord, a really young right back at Feyenoord. I think his name is like Gervino Reed or something like that. Is his name? his name's popped out of my head. But I've seen his name mentioned in an article earlier. But what about going for someone experienced? Like
Yeah.
instead of going for your your Frimpong, or like a lot of these lads I see on the list are all young, up and coming right backs, and you go right. But my big thing on this is, my only concern over Bradley is the fitness. And if Bradley stays fit, is this young fella going to get much of a game? And if you do have to bring him in, how you're throwing him in as right back for Liverpool. It's a really important position for Liverpool, right back. And I'm wondering, is that too much pressure to throw at someone at such a young age? If we were to look at because a few people in the chat there have said, go for an experienced player that can be there and can be like Ashley says, a foil for Bradley, but in a different way. Someone that's going to be steady and knows the game, has played plenty of football, and you let Bradley be the right back he wants to be, but you have someone that's coming in and can alternate with him. Because I don't think there's any harm in saying, right, in certain games we're going to play this right back, and in other games we're going to play this right back, depending on their styles. Is there anybody actually out there, experience wise, that you go, wouldn't mind putting him out there? Because I'll tell you one name I would have had a look at, but then I realised he was in Saudi Arabia and he's probably earning £1 million a week, and it's Joao Cancelo, the right back formerly at Manchester City, who I fucking loved when he was at Manchester City. But somebody along them lines, you're not going to get him back from Saudi because the money is probably extortionate. But is there anybody experienced out there that you look at and go, yeah, he might work?
I mean, the name that's been floating around the chat is Aina from Forest, and then I know that Kev's a big fan of Dumfries, who's we're watching right now. They're both 28 and 29 respectively. I think there is an argument for bringing in someone older. You have to remember that Liverpool have tried to bring in young right backs to help kind of support Trent and Connor Bradley. Like, we have Ramsey on our books. He is a right back technically, and he has had all sorts of injuries, hasn't been able to get into squads, and there is a risk when you're bringing in someone that's in that 18, 19-year-old kind of age range that you end up kind of having the same problem with two players, where you have Bradley that might have injuries, then you might have another young player that might have injuries. So if you had someone that was tried and trusted, I could see that working. I think the counter argument to that is, do you already have that in the squad with Gomez? Can you trust Gomez's injury record? I would say no. But I do think that kind of is that player that we already have, who's in that kind of 28-year-old-ish age range, who knows the role, who can do the role. I don't trust his injury record whatsoever.
Kev, I'll ask you for an experienced player, but as we're talking through this, I'm trying to think to myself, how many experienced players at the level we need them at are willing to come in here and play second fiddle to Connor Bradley? And that's why the names going around are younger players, where you can sell this project to them and Connor Bradley and make that right back position. We see Connor Bradley as this, but we don't mind if this guy progresses and pushes Connor Bradley, because I don't want any part of Joe Gomez, Jarell Quansah, Curtis Jones, any of these at right back next season for any reason at all.
No.
And
they're your break glass emergency.
Yeah, absolute emergency stuff. But we need right backs that can play football. Yeah, we need progressive right backs that can play football, because if you don't, you start starving Salah of service. And we've seen that over the 3 or 4 games where we just didn't have a right back.
No, I'm watching Dumfries now in this game and the other game previously, and I've watched him for a good few years now. At 29 years of age, he's got everything. The only thing I suppose he doesn't have is pace. He doesn't have raw pace, but strong on the ball, physical, can defend, likes to defend, gets up and down, has a great engine, good injury history as well. Again, plenty comfortable playing in big games, big clubs, right age, but wouldn't be cheap, and you probably have him for 3 years. I don't want to be. Look, I think Connor Bradley is a really, really good prospect, but you have to be bringing in someone who's going to push him for his place. He's not. He hasn't done enough to say that's my shirt, and you're bringing in someone to back me up. Nowhere near that. He's nowhere near that, and that's way too much to put on him as well. You have to bring in someone who's going to give him real competition. Give the manager a real option. And if you're playing in games and the manager wants to change it with 20 to go, he's comfortable making the change for either fullback. That's why you have to have two strong fullbacks for right back, left back. That the manager is going to be comfortable using either. Ideally, different types of fullbacks. You've got a swashbuckling fullback in someone like Kirkes, a solid fullback who you're going to get with what you're going to get with Robertson. Bradley is an up and down fullback. I think he's got goals in him. I think he'll have more goals and assists in his career than what Trent. We'll have more goals than what Trent has by the time he reaches 26, because he's just better at getting into the box.
He's more of a threat from inside the box. Like, it's not going to be set piece goals, but it's going to be from inside the box. It's like you were saying, that overlap that Robbo is doing with Gakpo on the left. You could see that happening on the right.
Yeah, I think he's just more natural at getting into the box. He's comfortable doing it. You watch any of the goals he's scored for Liverpool so far and for Northern Ireland. That's his natural thing that he normally does. So ideally, you'd probably look to bring in someone who's a bit more defensive to be the alternative for him. So that you'd have a right back who's primarily a defender, but who can support the play. But I'm convinced the club have known for a year what's going on with Trent anyway.
Yeah, Tony.
So they will have spent that time making sure to get the right person.
Yeah, Tony One Kenobi says, how's Gertrude getting on? He can play in multiple positions. Ashley, I know you're a fan of Gertrude. He went to Leipzig last year for 20 million, I think, from Feyenoord. Slot knows him. But Sam Tandy does put in there, that's thanks for putting the name up. He says, I can see Liverpool going for Guevara Reid at Feyenoord. Slot gave him his debut there when he was 17. But Gertrude, to me, felt like it could be a transfer last summer that never materialised. And he's gone to Leipzig last year. He's not going to be cheap. And I just don't see Liverpool spending massive amount of money here, because they've other things to be doing.
Sorry, my cat is having, a fit in the background. So if
That's
you hear
okay.
meowing, that's what's going on. Part of me, if I put a tinfoil hat on, part of me thinks that sending Gertrude to Leipzig, having him get used to a more challenging, pacey league, and then bringing him to Liverpool makes a lot of sense. He's 24 years old. The coach knows him inside and out. He does exactly what he wants him to do. In terms of having sort of like a general on the pitch, that seemed to be his role at Feyenoord. I think having more leaders is always better. I see the club picking someone more in that age group for, the senior role than I do someone in the 28, 29-year-old role. Like that, we just don't sign people that are in that, outside of Endo, who really is an exception to the rule. We just don't sign players in that bracket. And I think if you were looking for experience, Gertrude makes a lot of sense. Not because he's the flash name, but like I said, because he's sort of like a plug and play for what Slot wants.
It's the argument with Gertrude as well as he's played a little bit as centre back, and I know people don't really rate him because I think he's about 6 foot. But I just I don't think Leipzig are taking him for 20 million last year and saying, yeah, you can have him for 30. I just don't see it. I think Leipzig.
I doubt it. I'm just hypothetically.
Yeah, no, I just think he would have been a good signing for Liverpool, but in this circumstance, I just think it's too much. It's just too much. But the right back thing is going to rumble on. It's going to continue on and on and on. But I agree with Kev. I think Liverpool have known for quite some time. And even if they haven't known for a year, they've had rumblings of what's going on for a year. And it's probably been confirmed for them in the last 6 months, as to what's going on with Trent Alexander-Arnold. And if nothing else, Liverpool will be really good at saying, right, if this guy goes, who are we going to get? What sort of money do we want to spend? Who do we want to bring in? What do we want to do with Bradley, etc., etc. The planning is really, really good. But Kev, just moving away into the fullback bit for a minute. A name that's popped up, and to be fair, I've never fucking heard of this fella till about a month ago, when Shawnee said to me, I'm not watching the highlights of Stuttgart, and there's a fella playing for them, and he's pinging the fucking thing around here. He's unbelievable. And it's Stiller, the deep-lying midfielder for Stuttgart. His name has come up in the last 24, 48 hours. I don't even know what he's valued at, Kev, but this is where the midfielder discussion starts again. And what are we going to do? Are we going to move on and Endo and bring in someone like this? Or what are we going to do? Does it feel feasible that Liverpool will look at a midfielder?
Very. Angelo Stiller, 24 years of age. Transfer market have him valued at 38 million euro. German defensive centre mid.
I think they slapped 60 million euro on him recently.
Yeah, I think it would be in and around that. He's under contract until 2028. So, but we also know that Stuttgart are a selling club. So he's the kind of player that I think if you're going to bring, he's left-footed as well.
We scouted him last summer.
Yeah, I think if you're bringing him in, it's with a view to play Mac Allister further forward. To play someone like Stiller and Gravenberch as your two deep-lying players, and you're moving Mac Allister to be up closer to your striker, to be more like a playmaker. And it's a role that he's comfortable. Yeah, that's where you're going to get your creativity from. And it's a role that he did at Brighton before we signed him and started playing him deeper. He's got the football intelligence to be able to do that. But I think you're looking to bring in someone like Stiller if that's your plan. If that's your plan, to try to get that kind of to be able to free Mac Allister up, then I think that's how you do it. Because you look around football at the minute, there isn't exactly a wealth of what you call out and out number 10s. It's almost a position that's dying out of the game. Most sides now are going with your traditional 4-3-3 with your two 8s being your creativity, or they're playing with two strikers. As we're seeing with Inter tonight, playing in 5-3-2. So the out and out number 10s aren't there. So if you've already got an Alexis Mac Allister at your club, who you know what you're going to get with him as a midfielder, but you can push him forward and he can offer you that creativity from much higher up the pitch, I think it's a serious option. And Stiller looks a player. Sean is right. I watched some of his clips earlier on. His passing range is very, very good. I wouldn't say he's exceptional in any way, shape, or form. I think he's only got something like what's he got? 4 caps for Germany, something like that. So he's broke into the German, but the German national team is a bit of a weird one.
He played for the U21s though. He has 17 caps for the U21s.
Yeah, Germany don't tend to. They're kind of like what France used to be years ago. France years ago wouldn't pick players until they hit 23. Germany can tend to be like that, especially with your more solid defensive type players. They tend to wait until they're a bit more mature before they play them. But he has played an awful lot for the under-21, right the way the youth, through the youth setup, to be honest, with Germany. So, and
I know they have really high hopes for him there. I mean, they're calling him the next Toni Kroos. So if that's anything to go by, that sort of profile, it looks like.
If that's anything to go by, he's going to Bayern in the summer.
Well, he
came from Bayern.
He came from Bayern.
He came from their academy system. They let him go, and that's the argument. Does he go back, having been let go already?
Well, he went.
Sure.
He went from the Bayern youth setup, Bayern's second team. He went to Hoffenheim, and then he went from Hoffenheim to Stuttgart for 5 million. And he's been at Stuttgart since 2023. So he's really developed. And look, if they're looking for 60 million euro after shelling out 5 plus 5, plus 5, then there's definitely room for maneuver there. And you look at someone potentially, I don't know if Endo will go back, but maybe Stefan Bacic as a possibility. Loan with an option or something like that. There is ways and means.
Morton could go.
Tyler Morton, would suit German football. I don't think you get that kind of straight swaps in deals, but there's ways that we can recoup money.
You don't even have to go
fund
near
that kind of-
Stuttgart. You just go and you say, right, you want 60 million, that's fine. Leave it with us. And you go off and you get your 15 million for Morton and you get your
That's
whatever
what I
else.
mean, yeah.
And you make up 30 million somewhere and you go, right,
Yeah.
Grant, we're going to give you 60.
Yeah.
We're getting 30 back. It's costing us 30 overall. And we feel like we're getting more of a player that can do more for us. And yeah, Liverpool are going to have to deal like that. Everyone does. You know, the sort of way. But it's an interesting one because straight away I do think, and I think someone said in the chat earlier that guy was actually signed as a replacement for Endo. But it's interesting to see, like, when we get linked to a midfielder, is it immediately, well, Endo will go, you know? But I'm not too sure. I think there's doubts over one or two others as well. And
I think Elliot is a big question mark. You talk about the 10th
I feel like there's a
position.
surprise coming from midfield this summer.
I think he might be it. I mean, I've seen Wolves get linked with Elliot today for around £50 million. A move like that.
How
we're
much?
talking about 50.
Yeah. Oh, it would
£50
be.
million for Harvey Elliott. Is
Yeah.
that what you just said to me?
Yeah.
Oh,
I did.
he'd be easily there.
So I saw that today. I mean, we saw Slot looking at him in that 10 position, which is not his natural position. It makes me wonder, is Slot trying to solve that kind of conundrum from within? And I think Mac Allister is the natural answer. I don't think it's Elliot at all. I would hate to see Elliot leave, but if you were to kind of use him as a make weight for something like that, that's where you gathered your money from, it would make sense.
Wharton is getting lots of shouts in the chat as well here. Ranald Red said, I like Stiller, but not at 60 million. At that price, you may as well push on for Wharton.
I watched Wharton last night, and I tell you what, he's really good footballer. Slow as a wet week. He's no pace whatsoever. He's he positions himself really well.
Yeah.
And in a Palace midfield, his job is to stay in his lane. And you're mainly going to be defending. He doesn't get around the pitch very quickly, but his passing range is very good. And he's got really good intelligence. And he's still really young. I feel for him.
On the ball. Like, I watched that Palace game, and he had so much time to kind of pick a pass. I don't know if he gets that in our team. I don't know if he gets that kind of bubble around him to then look. I think it's going to happen a lot faster at the pace that we're playing.
It's interesting. I think I
You're
feel
looking
like
for an English player. I think Elliot Anderson is your man.
Yeah, Forrest. Yeah, he's really, really good.
They signed him, didn't they?
Yeah, I know.
Is he there too? This will be a second season now at Forest, whatever. Really?
Well, he went there when Newcastle were forced to sell.
That wasn't that last summer. That was the summer before.
Yeah, it was. I think. Yeah. No, I think it was last.
I think it was June.
Was it?
Yeah, it was this last summer. Yeah.
Yeah, Super Dizzle is mentioning Florian Wirtz, but I've seen one or two things about him possibly going to Bayern.
I saw Gibbs White pretty heavily linked to City.
Yes.
I mean, he's a player I would look at. I would love Morgan Rogers. I mean, I think that's kind of known here on this channel. I really like him.
Yeah. Baleba has been mentioned there as well.
I think you're talking about really big money. If you're talking about
but I think you can make an argument for any of these, and you can make an argument for any of these players. But I don't think it's in my head, and I could be wrong. In my head, it doesn't mean, listen, we're getting rid of Endo, who we replace them with. I think there's more to it than that. And like Kev mentioned something there a minute ago about what's your plan. Is your plan to go in with a 4-3-3 and one sit deep? Is your plan that you go in and you sit too deep and you allow that guy ahead of you, if it is a Mac Allister or whatever, a little bit more freedom to join up with the attackers? It's going to be so interesting to see what they do. Yeah. It's going to be so interesting.
This summer is going to be fascinating. We don't really know what.
No, we don't really know what he wants.
What he wants to evolve into. No. That's the thing.
We don't really know what Hughes can do at this level. We know what he can do at Bournemouth's level. And what he does there is pull from places like rocks that you don't even look under. Like, he's known for finding players that have kind of fallen out of favor at certain clubs that can then push on. He's known for looking in places that are not obvious. And I think a lot of these names feel a little bit obvious to me. Maybe a Stiller feels a little bit less so, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's someone from, like, I don't know, like, he loves looking in Italy. He loves looking at, the Georgian players. He loves looking at players that, just have that jump to make. And I think a lot of times that's not showing up in like, I don't know, like the Twitter polls of what the obvious answers are, if that makes sense.
The problem I've got with that, and it's a big problem, is you're not buying for Bournemouth. You're buying for a club who's going to be expected to go and win another title and progress further than we did in Europe. And if his plan is to sell 5 or 6 players, then you have to be rebuilding with that level of quality and better that can hit the ground running tomorrow.
Yeah.
We saw what happened with Chiesa, and that was not a flying start. So that's why I'm saying, like, we're yet to kind of see what he can do at this level.
But my thing on this is
clever, but you can be too clever.
I think he probably looks at 15 to 16 players, and he says to himself, I'm happy with that. And the other 5 or 6, I'll use them when I have to. I think he'd like to go from 15, 16 to probably 17 or 18. And 3 people will be 3 that you would use when he has to use them. That's where I think he'll be, because there is a little period in the season where you're thinking, if we just had a little bit more of A, B or C to put into this team, from the start of games, I think it would have benefited us massively, especially in periods when you're playing like 5 games in fucking 8 days. That's what it felt like at times. I think that's what he might look at. But the midfield one is the midfield one nearly gets bypassed, because we've signed a lot of midfielders in the last couple of years. But up front,
I think there's a missing piece in there.
I do as well. But I don't know if the missing piece.
It could be any of them. Like it could be a 10, it could be a 6, it could be an 8. I don't think there's just one position.
Yeah. I just don't think when you think midfielder, it's just like, right, Endo's gone, we're bringing someone in. I have a feeling it's not going to be like that. Inter Milan are into the Champions League final after beating Barcelona.
What a great match for that.
105 to 103 in the semi-final. But
insane.
Before we finish up attackers, I've seen Sesko mentioned in the last couple of days, and I'm like, that fella has no interest in running around for his team. No thanks. That's my opinion.
He's incredibly raw.
But when I watch him, he's no interest in helping. And I think if to be a centre forward at Liverpool, you're gonna have to help. But I'm gonna Ashley. Now, me and you openly fancy the arse of this fella, Julian Alvarez. Okay.
He's just the most obvious answer.
And people are thrown in the chat there. Has anybody seen these rumours with regards to Darwin, who Atletico are supposedly keen on going there, and Alvarez going in the opposite direction? Honest to God.
If Hughes could pull that off, I swear to God, Dylan.
He gets a statue.
Dylan is going to carve that statue by hand, and we're all going to watch. It's going to be live streamed on here. It'll be fantastic. If that happens, my mind would just be blown.
But that's what we need.
We scouted him before.
We looked for him last year.
We absolutely need a player like that. The problem is, it's a very new move. It would be a lot of money. If you can offset it with a big move, let's just say Darwin goes to Saudi for 70 to 80. If you could, that was the number that was being floated in.
70 was the number, yeah.
Crazy, but that was the number. If you could offset that fee, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially if you could potentially be getting rid of Jota as well and maybe get a fee for him. There is money there that you could get in and still have a pretty decent forward line. I would be okay with Alvarez coming in and losing Jota and Nunez and having Diaz be our backup number 9. I would be okay with that. I think you then have Jayden Danns that goes on loan. I think you take a look at someone like a Doak, see where he's at. He could be sold for a little bit of cash as well. It seems like he has a lot of interest in some of the lower league, the lower end of the Premier League table. There's money to be made there, so you could. I don't think that he's going to be any more expensive than an Isaac, to be fair. I actually think that, especially with Newcastle going into the Champions League, I think they're both equally difficult to get. So if you're going to aim high, I would aim for Alvarez. I just think that he has more versatility. I think he can play off the right when Salah goes to AFCON. I think he, as long as he doesn't have any sort of loyalty to City, I don't know. That would be my pick.
He'd be my pick too. I think
Which is
Alexander
probably not
Isaac
gonna happen.
has had a brilliant season. Again, when I look at even going back, and again, it was about 11 minutes of footage of Feyenoord I watched before Arne Slot became Liverpool manager, and I couldn't take my eyes off the fact that the centre forward was so intelligent in what he was doing, in the runs he was making, and nearly dictating what other players around him were to do, depending on what runs he made. And I don't know if Liverpool go for your out and out 9, which I believe Isaac is. I think he's an out and out 9. He's a really good footballer, because when you say out and out 9, people think you just stand in the box and tap her in the net. It's not. I think he's an absolute goal getter, Isaac. And I'm not against him signing for Liverpool, by the way. But I think if you're going off past evidence, right? I just think Alvarez fits like a glove, and I know the money is substantial, but I do think if you told Liverpool it's going to cost you 40 million quid to improve this front line, and you could do that with Darwin moving on to wherever and putting 40 million on top to make this front line multiple times better, I don't see why they don't do it. Kev?
They're asking £140 million for a guy who scored 15 goals this season.
Who?
Julian Alvarez.
Yeah, no, they won't get that though. Of course they start
there. They've got him under contract till 2030.
Yeah.
They'll get what they want or just go away.
But the market isn't there for 140 million.
Then sucks to be you, doesn't it?
But we know the market's not there for that.
But that would be my answer.
It's hypothetical.
But that would be my answer as Atletico Madrid to anyone knocking on the door. Is I don't give a shit what you want or what you think you can do with him. He's under contract till 2030. We know what we have. We know what he's worth to us. And if we have any ambition of challenging Barcelona and Real Madrid, don't come knocking on the door for...
they could do a lot with let's say 120 million and then spread that across the squad. I don't know where they are in terms of squad building, but if they wanted to do like a Coutinho and sell a player for big money,
but they've already outlaid
that next step.
They've already outlaid 90 million on him, so they have to recoup that plus more to be able to go out and then spend it again. They're not interested in selling him. They're just not. Every player in Spain has a buyout in their contract, and I'd imagine the buyout in his contract is got so many zeros on it. It's just not even. I don't think the calculator even has that many zeros on it. So the only time we were going to be
for then. Like, who's your realistic option? If it's not Isaac, if it's not Alvarez, who's your realistic option?
Ekitike would be one. It would be someone like Ekitike. I'd like to see a physical player, someone who's got size, someone who's pace, footballer, but someone who's lives in the width of the 18-yard box. And I don't think Jota goes, and I think he should. I think he should go if we get an offer, but I think Jota will still be the number 9 next season because he seems determined to play him into form. The way he's using him now, so far towards at the end of the season, he's giving him as many opportunities as possible to play. He already knows he's got Luis Diaz in his back pocket as an option who can play there as well. I think it'll probably win along the lines of to £50 million price range where the club are comfortable at. Because
didn't they jump their price recently though? Like reportedly, didn't they slap a price tag of around 90 to 100 on Ekitike? Because there's no way in hell I'm paying that kind of money for that raw of a talent. Like he could be the next. We've already kind of had that with Nunes. Like we've already done he could be the next best thing.
You still have Jonathan David available at free.
I just don't. He does not excite me whatsoever.
You're not going to be getting someone. If Jota's going to be your 9 and you've got Diaz, you need an option.
Jota hasn't done anything in the last 6 months since he's gotten that rib injury
I
to
know.
convince anyone in this entire chat that he is the number 9 answer. Like, if anyone in the chat thinks that Jota is the number 9 answer, like, please let us know. He was.
The funny thing is, right?
I literally have his jersey behind me. I'm a giant fan, but I think his time has come and gone, and every single time we play with him, we're worse.
I actually think Jota should be. I think Jota should have been the absolute answer to this question. In an Arne Slot side, a fella that drops off, links play well, has decent pace, has an eye for goal. He's good in the air for the size of him. He is actually a package that you kind of go, yeah, you know what? Look, I'll put it to you this way. If Jota was fully fit and playing for Atletico Madrid, we'd be sitting here going, we need to go and get Jota. Because look what he does, the style of player he is. He's not an absolute penalty box striker, but his attributes and the way he plays football and the way he plays the game would suit Liverpool down to a T. He just can't stay fit. And I think it was Dylan said there, he said, we've literally played a left winger out of position for most of the season because Jota can't stay fit. And
I know.
I think Jota, yeah, but you see, if you see, well, this is my thing on it. If you're letting Darwin Núñez go, right, I don't think you're letting Jota go, because I think Jota should be your option.
He's not my starter.
No. I agree with you. But I don't think if we're looking at this team now, we're looking at. I think he likes Gakpo and he likes Diaz off the left. I think Diaz as a third option down the middle with Jota, but I want the number 1 option. And then Salah is on a world of his own over on the right, because who's getting game time ahead of him? You know what I mean? I think if you're going to sign someone that's going to be not even challenging Salah, I would like someone young and really exciting to go in there and go, do you know what? We're going to throw you on with 25 minutes to go most weeks. You know, Salah's going to come out, we're going to rest him. He's going to get his goal and assist and he's going to get off the pitch. But Núñez isn't the answer and Jota isn't the answer, but Jota is the option answer for me. So you need to go out there and you need to say to yourself, and if you're going for a number 1 target, or if you're going for the man that's going to start down the middle of the pitch for Liverpool on the whatever date in August, start of the season, you have to pay. You have to pay. Like I've seen Liam Delap. I've seen Liam Delap's name being mentioned. No. You know, and I'm like, Liam Delap is signing some wall in a gaff outside Goodison Park during at the weekend, and Everton fans are rejoicing, saying he'd be a brilliant signing for us. If that's Liam Delap's level,
I think he'd be a great signing for like a West Ham, like to replace Antonio. I mean, I don't know if Antonio is ever going to come back. I think he'd be really good for someone like that. I think that you're looking at some of these number 9s, and I don't think they're ready to make that leap. I think they have potential, but we need ready now. Like this, we are coming at this from the champions of England, and we're never going to have a better position to recruit a player of this caliber. And I understand recruiting youth, but seize your position of power, build from your position of power. This is we just did a whole summer with no buying. Like Chiesa, fine, he's an afterthought to me, but we just did a whole summer of no buying. We spent the whole summer letting this group of individuals take and assess the squad. I expect them to do something substantial, and whether that's substantial numbers wise in terms of how much a player costs, or numbers wise in terms of the number of players they bring in, you have to strengthen now, because like Slot has over delivered in my opinion, and I think that this is sort of like a bonus. I think they were going to build anyways. Now you get to build and attract almost like the next best level of player.
I think it's the biggest signing of the summer, the centre forward. And I know that sounds like a really easy thing to say because they're the ones that get the headlines. But like when we've gone through the season, we've kind of went, will Trent go? Will he stay? Right? centre back Gomez, and you're kind of hemming and hawing over positions. Left back, which one will we play? They've kind of been as good as each other, but they'll probably bring in a left back. And you're kind of looking and you're saying to yourself, yeah, I think they will do something there. And Robertson, if he doesn't fancy Simicast, Robertson isn't getting any younger, and he wants to forward plan now and bring a player in and make Robertson not a squad player, but be able to turn around and go, I'm playing that guy, and Robertson's going to play every 3 games or come on, because he does substitute his fullbacks quite a bit. And then when you look at midfield, you're kind of going, is he leggy? Is he this? And we've kind of had little questions over things as the season went on. I don't take the he looks leggy and he looks burnt out thing. I just don't, right? But I could be wrong on that. But the big thing all season has been the forward thing. It has been all season. It's been who's going to play up front. He's not fit enough. He's a fucking left winger. That fella can't hear a barn door. And it's been the biggest talking point of the season with regards to performance-wise and the output we're getting from that position has been the biggest talking point. And if that's your biggest talking point, it's your biggest issue. And your biggest issue, unfortunately, is centre forward, where you pay the most money. You genuinely pay the most money for centre forwards or, left or right wingers. That's just the way football has always been, unless there's a massive outlier somewhere in a Zidane, or one of these. But I just think
we have a saleable asset there, though. Thankfully, we have Nunes. He is under contract. We will get good money for him, so it will soften the blow. Because if you look at our history, our sweet spot for signings is somewhere around 35 to 55 million ish. You're not going to get shit in the striker market these days for that kind of money. You are going to have to offset it. It's going to be big numbers no matter what.
I think we have a plan. We have a show planned for Thursday night, which we will be pre-recording with clips of certain players and stuff like that, and stats and different things. So if you're not on our Patreon, you might want to get on board. Patreon.com/Talkin Kop, and we're going to do one on Thursday night where we're going to look at highlights of certain players. But it's kind of made me mind up doing this show that I think, forget the right back bit for a minute, I think we should probably bring strikers to the table here and look at their attributes and their price, their form, their availability. And let's have a good look at this on Thursday night. We'll pre-record and it'll be out on Friday morning. It's a tough one, isn't it, Kev?
You're still looking at, you got Joao Pedro at Brighton. He's a
but he's headbutting fellas for no reason, Kev.
So we had a guy who was biting people and he was a legend.
Yeah, he was. But
I don't know if we want to replicate that, though.
But the thing is, By the way, I watched them a couple of weeks ago away at Brentford, and Brentford were fucking terrified of him. Every time he got the ball, didn't matter where, Brentford backed off him. An extra fella came over to mark him, and then they backed off. I
didn't realise he's 6 foot.
Yeah, he's not a small lad whatsoever.
And he's only 23.
I'm not sure he passed the dickhead test.
Oh, fuck. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day,
neither does Nunes, to be fair.
No, and I just think at the right age, surrounded by players where he's not the main man, where he's not expected to be the main man, where he can just come into the club. You have Alisson and mind him. I think someone like him would be fine. Plus, he knows the league.
Do you think he can step up?
Yeah.
I mean, like Richard says in the chat, Jerry says in the chat, that's his level. That he's kind of peaked. Do you think that he has another level to go to?
Yeah, you don't peak at 23. If you want to talk about players who you think have peaked, I did not see Rafinha doing what he's doing at Barcelona while he was at Leeds.
I mean, we should definitely. I kind of, looking back, hindsight's 2020, because I remember looking at him and being like, is he worth it? I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, he's definitely stepped up.
Yeah.
I think the big thing on him was when he was going to Barcelona, and he was linked with Liverpool, wasn't he? Because there was talk about Salah's contract at the time.
Yeah.
And I think when he was going to a really exciting player, Leeds fans love him. Joe Wayman absolutely adores him. But I think when he was going there, it was like he's a really good player, but they're in a fucking mess. Is he a sort of player that can carry a team on his back of that magnitude? And that's where I think the doubts over Rafinha came. But you look at him this season, 13 goals in 14 games in the Champions League. All right, he's gone out tonight. But I think he surpassed what people thought he could do at Barcelona. Not even in the footballing sense, I think in the leadership sense. And because you have to remember, like, he has an agent, Lewandowski, right? He's a really young Yamal who's outstanding. We know this.
Yeah.
But it was all about Rafinha. Because Rafinha felt if Rafinha didn't...
Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, but if Rafinha didn't do it...
It kind of tosses the whole thing up in the air now that they got kicked out.
It might do. But for me, Rafinha, his leadership and his ability to stand up and go, I'm the main man here. Right?
Yeah.
He has been the main man for Barcelona this year. Yamal has been outstanding, but it always felt like if Rafinha doesn't do it here, Lewandowski niggles here, niggles there. Lamine Yamal is so young. You know, young players can burn out a little bit for periods of seasons or whatever. But I think Rafinha has been unbelievable. And
Sam makes a really good point there. He says Joao Pedro reminds him of Jota when he was at Wolves, in the sense that gets to move to a bigger club. You'll see a better player, a better version of Joao Pedro, and I think that's very possible. Mm-hmm. Someone else mentioned Evan Nielsen. Evan Nielsen, I think Bournemouth bought him for in a region of €45 million. I think it was Bournemouth's biggest buy by a distance, and he's good, he's talented, but I think Joao Pedro is more rounded. I think he gives you more, and you look at how Brighton play with him in the side. He can drift, and he does press, and he's pretty intelligent. You know, he picks up really good positions, and when he's on it, he's unplayable. But if you had someone like a Jota that can supplement games, can play games, and take pressure off him, he can develop in 6 months to turn around and say, right, I've sharpened my elbows now. Now I'm going to be starting. Because you're not buying any player, whoever we sign for in this summer, is not going to be for the here and now. They'll buy him for how good they're going to be over their contract. That's how the club have always done it.
Do you think that there's not an argument, though, that you have sort of a window with Salah re-signing, with Virgil re-signing, that they're going to want to compete right now, and that signing in the forward line needs to be for the now? Like, it needs to be for the now and also for the future. Like, you know, obviously you're not going to sign, I mean, this is an exaggeration, but you're not going to sign like a Harry Kane or a Lewandowski because obviously they're at the tail end of their career. But
but if you're asking Salah or Van Dijk, they're probably going, can we get 2 great years there, or Harry Kane? Yeah, well then go and do it, because in 2 years I'm out as well.
It's like theoretically they only have 2 years left. I think that this is probably their last contract at the club, and you know, you hear Virgil talk and he's like, it's going to be a big summer, and you hear Mo talk and he's like, we are going to compete next year. You hear Mac Allister talk, we are going for the Champions League next year. Those comments indicate to me that number 9 is going to be ready to play in those competitions and is going to be ready to compete in those competitions. That to me does not indicate a project. That indicates he's kind of ready.
I agree. You see, I agree with you in the centre forward position. I don't think we can go in for projects in the centre forward position. I think it needs to be someone to come in and go.
Maybe in the right back position. Maybe.
Yeah,
in the
I agree. I fully agree with you.
Areas for projects.
Yeah, because when your biggest issue needs to be fixed, it needs to be fixed properly. It doesn't have time.
And you're talking about Isaac.
You're probably talking about. That's why I think Isaac and Alvarez are absolutely in the thing. And let's be fair. If you offset 70 million quid for Darwin Núñez, Liverpool have done in the past when needed to have gone and went there 75 million quid. And I wouldn't put it beyond them. I wouldn't put it beyond them to go in and go, there's 125 million quid for Julian Alvarez. And there's we'll give it to you. Do you want it, yes or no? And I do think the centre forward thing, don't get me wrong, Kev, if something came around where you could say I could bring in Joe Pedro and Julian Alvarez, I go, yeah, snap your fucking hand off, because if you're
going to sell Jota,
if your number one option and you've your number one striker and your option is, I would argue, Premier League proven. Yeah, He is, and this is why I don't. This is why I've always given some credence to the Cunha link, because Cunha feels like to me like that is a fella that can go up and play up front for Liverpool, but he has all the tools of the guy that drops off, links play, brings players into play. You know, all this sort of way. That's why I think that comes. But again, he's a knobhead, so I don't think that'll happen. You know what I mean?
One name that will always get linked around when it comes to strikers is Victor Osimhen.
Yeah.
Don't know what's going on with him. I know he's in Turkey at the minute. Whether he's going back to Italy, I don't know.
He wants to come back to England, according to reports. And I did see that our scouts had looked at him, but I don't think it's something that they were interested in. But they did.
I think the money would be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Osimhen is on loan in Turkey from Napoli, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could really, if you're.
I mean, there might be something clever there going with like Chiesa going back or going to Napoli, or
you could do, but
because I think that they were looking at him.
Is he a good enough footballer?
No.
That's my thing.
No,
I think he's a goal scorer, and I don't know if goals are great, but I think you need to do more on this Liverpool side than just goals.
Was that you, Ashley, in the comments? I was just about to say, Ashley, there's someone in the comments there that turned around and said about Vissa at Brentford.
I was talking to Wizard, the person in the chat, but I do think that Wissa is like worth a mention. I mean, the problem with him is that he's 28. But if you're looking for sort of like a bargain option, like you could probably get. I think Mbeumo is going to go. I think who was it? The captain of Brentford was kind of openly speaking about Mbeumo going, but he was also talking about the prospect of Visa going this summer as well. And if you're talking about like a low price option that could deliver goals, I think you could do worse. Like I just don't think that we're looking at that age range. I think that anyone 28 and older just feels like it was a one-off with Endo getting that kind of a signing in.
I think they keep Jota, Salah, Diaz, Gakpo. I think they sign a number one target for down the middle, and I think they sign a young prospect on the right side. That's what I think they'll do. Who that prospect is, I don't know, but I think they will. I think.
You think they sell Ben Doak?
Yeah, I think they will, because I think they look
if the offer comes in, because I think they were talking around 35.
Yeah, and I think if someone comes in with that sort of money, they will. I think they might even go back and look at that guy of PSV. Yeah, I think they go in and look at something like that. Yeah, that's what I think they'll do. But listen, we leave it at that. We've fucking loads of names there. Right back, left back, centre mid, centre halves. We didn't do centre halves actually, which is a nice
we didn't even get to
no, that's a nice change. I'm fucking sick talking about centre halves at Liverpool and the many we need. But Thursday, we will do a beer. Jesus, Gav, we'll be doing a pre-record. And we're going to concentrate on the strikers. We're going to have a look at the stats. We're going to have a look at some clips. And then we're going to release that on Friday morning on our Patreon. So if you're not signed up, if you are signed up, fair play to you. If you're not, patreon.com/Talkin Kop. And you can get all our shows there. There's loads of members shows and audio shows and all sorts of stuff going on there. So you can do that as well. The link for NordVPN is in the description. If you're after an LVPN, if you're after some security, you're after, you can get over to America and watch some of your shows and do stuff like that. You can go off anywhere in the world and watch different shows with your virtual private network. And of course, your 10 devices and everything else. The link is in the description. There is 4 months free being offered on 1 year and 2 year deals. So that might be worth looking at as well. Kev, anything else before we go?
No, nothing. I'm not going anywhere near the gossip pages whatsoever. Nothing. Okay. All good.
Don't do fucking anything, Kev. It's 11:05. Yeah, this is the witching hour for Kev, where he goes, oh, and it's like something that was on BBC, the BBC gossip page last Wednesday, and Kev decides he's reading it out, which is to be great. Ashley, anything else before we go?
No, I'm good. That was a good game today. I just want to say that was a good watch today in the Champions League.
It was a great watch. Davey T says, is mentioning Anthony Gordon. No thanks. Under any fucking circumstances. No. Right? No. Look at the fucking head of hair. No. Just with his hair long. Fuck off, Anthony Gordon. So
There's
we're
way
gonna
too many Deirdre Barlow tweets out there
yeah,
to be.
we're gonna leave it at that. That has been the Talking Cop. We'll be back tomorrow with some sort of content. You know yourself. We'll be
We'll
back
figure
tomorrow.
it out. It'll be
Yeah,
fine.
we'll figure it out. Talk to you in a bit. Over and out.